Hi and welcome. Today I have a mixed media art journal page for my homemade art journal. When it's done, I take and put some double-sided tape strips on it and secure it to my journal. And so I'm starting with a piece of 5.5 by 5.5 standard cardstock because I'm going to be covering the whole thing with papers. And I'm taking this Tim Holtz. It's a ruler, but it's got edges on it that you can rip papers. It's a little sharp edge. And so all you do is line it up and pull your paper, and you've got paper strips. And so I'm just getting me a couple off of each of these scrapbook pieces of paper. I'm picking all naturals, and then I'm going to start gluing them onto my paper. Occasionally I'll do a little tiny strip just to get that straight edge gone. I'm taking a couple from each, and it will be more than enough. I probably had enough to do a whole nother piece, and I'll save them for later. On the other side, it can be like a really ripped edge. Okay, so I have my strips and I have my piece of cardstock, and I'm just gonna start randomly gluing. Well, maybe not so randomly. I'm trying to mix and match the patterns. But I don't have a set plan when I start. And sometimes I'm even stripping off little pieces so maybe it doesn't go all the way to the bottom, or it's not as thick on the bottom. And I'm just taking my Tombow glue stick and gluing them to the cardstock. I'm going to the edge, and then we'll work my way across the page. I'm overlapping them mostly so that I got 90% coverage. Again, I'll rip some of them so it doesn't go all the way, but All neutrals, but lots of different patterns. And this one has a straight edge, so I'm just going to butt it up to the other edge so I don't have to rip that edge, that straight edge. And one last one. So I'm totally good with some of that showing through, or some of the cardstock showing through. So I've trimmed off all the excess edges. And I've got a large dog barking on the other side of my fence. So I'm taking some gesso, and this is extra heavy or extra thick. This happens to be Liquitex, but you can do any gesso. And I'm going to be spreading it on, but first I wanted to color it. And I'd never tried it before, so I thought, well, I kind of wanted the salvaged patina look. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to spray some salvaged patina on my gesso and see what happens. I mean, it did slightly tinge it, but oh my gosh, I probably would have had to use the whole bottle to get, you know, it to be the color that I want. So after a couple sprays, I grab a couple of my acrylic paints that I know make the color of the patina I like. I'll list them in the description because I can't remember their names right off the bat, but I've done this before with the acrylic paint, so I know that it makes the color that I want. So kind of robin's egg blue, but a little more on the salvage patina spectrum, I think. And so I'm just taking some, and I'm going to be using the flat side of my spreader there and just keeping it flat so it just kind of skims the surface so that I'm not spreading it really. I'm just skimming it over the top. I want it to be a little thick. I want it to be a little skippy so that it's not just a solid layer. I don't want that. So I want to be able to see some of the papers from underneath. Quite a bit of the paper from underneath, but yet not all of the paper from underneath. I find the little Tim Holtz diagonal or spade looking palette knife to be perfect for this because it's not too big. You don't lose control of it. And you can work with a small area. You could just do this with paint as well. Um, I like using gesso because I think it covers really well and adds a little bit of thickness and texture. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, clean up, and it's still water cleanups even with the acrylic paints. So now that it's dry, I've picked out a few things that I want to use. I can't remember where I got that flower. I'm almost thinking it's from a sticker book. I've had it for quite a while and just hadn't figured out something to use it for. And then I also am using Tim Holtz frame. It's like a scrappy frame. They use different papers. It's all one piece, but use different papers together. If you're familiar with the pocket cards, it's kind of like that, but in a frame. And then I'm taking a couple number strips, or not number strips, a couple paper strips, and just gonna put a couple, one on the right, one on the left, offset from the frame. And then I'm also gonna use a couple of my digital download butterflies. And they're not really gonna compete in color. They're very neutrals, black and white, and just neutral colors, so that the paint, selvage paint background and the yellow flower is going to be the standouts. I am adding some vintage photo. It doesn't show up real well in the frame because it's kind of one of the, if you're familiar with the Tim Holtz products, kind of like the layers. It's kind of got a shiny surface, and I could have added some collage medium to dull it out, but I was okay with it as it was. So I'm going to glue my flower down first, and I'm going to do it at an angle. And I'm putting the frame back just for placement purposes, so I know where everything else is going to go. The frame will probably be the last thing I glue on of these items anyways. And I have to scoot that piece up underneath the flower. Just so that it's offset from the frame a little bit, but not a lot. And now for the frame, I put some on the inside and then some over the stitching on the frame, because that's gonna be what comes in contact with my background. I'm gonna add a sentiment. I'm gonna use the, oh, I always forget the name of this one. It's not Chit Chat, clippings. And so I found one that says the flowers appear on the earth. And I just like that one. So adding a little bit of distress ink, and then I'm going to glue it down directly onto the frame. And since that does leave a little bit of room beneath it, I'm going to go ahead and add a Tim Holtz number strip. So I get one and I trim it just because I didn't want it to be quite so wide and or quite so tall, I guess. And then I'm just going to glue it down. And I tuck it in slightly underneath that frame. And I think the last thing I do is add some vintage photo around the edges, and I kind of bring it in, and instead of just touching the edges, I bring it in a little bit, and I just really liked what it did to the color on the vintage photo, that I actually bring the vintage photo onto the entire selvage patina area, just kind of touching it in all those areas. It kind of made it look a little dingier, which I liked. And that's it. I hope you liked it. It was a lot of fun making. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I invite you to come along with my art journey. And if you like what you saw, please give me a thumbs up. Either way, I just hope you have an awesome day.